Oh, wow.
I
And
want to
yet
bring it full circle.
you bring it for yet you still watch the Kardashians. Yes, I went live with that, folks. I just confessed something out of Ian's vault there. He watches the Kardashians. So
Yes.
there you go. No judgment here. And thank you all for joining us today here in the spoiler room, venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, tapping your favorite drink, and talking movie spoilers with us tonight. We're Horror of 1988 episode. Yes, it's our special series this year that we're doing where we're covering horror films from 1988 that you, the listeners, had voted on last year. And tonight is a classic for many, and it is A Night of the Demons from 1988. And I've got a great crew here for me tonight. With me to talk about demons and house parties gone awry. They are back with us again. First off, it's Kara from Horror Retrospective. See, I said it right this time. How you doing tonight, Kara?
Doing okay.
Great. Glad to have you here, and especially get that retrospective on this film. So glad to have you in the room. And next to me as well, it is Mr. Ian Simmons, the man who just keeps coming back for more. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, but now I want to see Kid and Play's house party with demons in it.
Oh,
That did occur to me as you said that too.
That would have been awesome. They could have done. I would have rather seen that than a haunted house or a haunted house 2 or Scary Movie 85 or yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would have rather seen Kid and Play in a house party movie, but it was horror themed and they had to deal with demons and ghosts. Man,
Kid and Play's haunted house party. Someone get on that. They
come
can still
on.
do it.
Kid and Play haunted house party. Could you could bring back some OG rappers to haunt the place, those that are still living, and I mean, because some have passed away, so but that would be cool. But we're not talking about that though. Copyright Spoiler Room 2022. Tonight we are talking about Night of the Demons. And Mr. Ian Simmons, it is your turn tonight to give the synopsis of Night of the Demons from 1988. Go.
Well, a group of teenagers, and I'm assuming they're all teenagers because we see the headstone of one of them at the very end, and it turns out he was 18 years old, which is very strange because all these people, Linnea Quigley, for example, was 30 when she made this movie.
Shh, quit ruining the suspension of disbelief.
Cheeky scene could have fooled me.
Yeah.
I mean,
well said, Kara. Well said.
We'll get into Miss Quigley later, but
oh, we will.
I love the idea of Linnea Quigley. I love Linnea Quigley. She's very nice. I met her in person. She sang me a birthday song once.
Aww.
But God damn it, when I watch her in any movie, I'm like, you are terrible at acting. Anyway.
Wow.
Yes.
I liked her as trash.
Yeah.
I think it's a great character name and an accurate description of the performance. Anyway.
Oh.
If you're watching this, Linnea, I love you. So anyway, there's a group of like rowdy high schoolers, and they go to a haunted house. Unfortunately, not with Kid and Play in it. And there's a girl, Angela, who's like the goth kid, and she decides, hey, would it be fun to do a mirrored seance or something like that? And of course, it's Halloween, so it's the night that all the demons can come out and roam the earth. And demons get loose and they possess people through kissing and other bodily contact and fluids. And there's mayhem and people running amok. And that's basically Night of the Demons with a great, and I mean a wonderful bookend of the old man, the cranky old man in the neighborhood who's going to get revenge on all those stupid kids. Putting razors in the apples, and he gets his just desserts, which we can talk about later. That's a little too early, spoilerish.
That's a little spoiled. That's a little too early. Wow, and a dad pun at that. Good job.
I want ice cream.
Just inspect the ice cream before. You might want to melt it and then refreeze it just to make sure there's nothing in there.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. That might be. And look, so many people left. We had like 4 people watching, and now we've talked
It's
about.
because I trashed Linnea Quigley. I get it.
was.
I understand.
You should, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed her in this. But yeah, it's an interesting film. Kara, do you remember when you first saw Night of the Demons?
I can't remember how old I was. I remember I saw it in theater. I was still a little kid.
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I mean, I was 13 when I saw it, but I saw it on cable too. I didn't see it on in the theater, but I did see it on cable. So it was cable fodder for quite some time, and I dug it for many reasons, especially reasons a 13-year-old may enjoy this film.
He's not a martyr.
It was for the set design. Yeah, it was for the set design.
That is one thing I really dug about this movie is it didn't feel like it was that there was production design. It felt like they actually found, and they might have, I don't know the history of it, but it looked like they found a rundown basement and just put up some like chintzy decorations to make it look all Halloweeny, and then just went for it. I mean, it's a really cool house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really cool house and cool setting. One of the things is my son, honorable son number 1, who discovered horror films a number of years ago. He sat down and started watching it with me. He left and then came back in like 10 or 15 minutes. He's like, oh, okay, things have happened now. Because and he pointed it out. We got into a bit of an argument and then turned to civil discussion because I did a dad card thing. So
You
I
slapped him
fully
around?
admit-
Mark,
No, I
it's just a
didn't.
movie.
No, I would no.
Sorry,
I
that's
just-
my
Modern.
version of a
He
dad
used a
card.
rolled up newspaper.
That's right. I'm Gen X, man. I use my belt. Damn it.
Wow.
No, no, because I watching it when I was younger. I think I enjoyed it more. But he did have a valid point. This film takes a little while to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because you do have your 3-act thing going on. You have your first act where you get introduced to your characters who he found none of them likable, which I'm like, yeah, okay, but that's
Don't blame him.
you don't blame. You didn't like any of them either.
I forget the guy with the pig snout.
Stooge.
Yeah, and some of the other guys were just really obnoxious.
Yeah, they
And
were.
the girls were just cliches. The Alice girl was okay, but I think she was a little too nicey.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Ian? When's the first time you saw this?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I was probably a preteen and I saw it on cable. I think it was one of those things where I like snuck downstairs to watch, after dark stuff after my parents had gone to sleep. So I don't know if I ever watched it like start to finish, but I watched it in parts.
Oh, sure.
And that might account for the reason that watching it for the first time really as an adult, I had a completely different experience of the ending. I swear there was a version of this film, and maybe I'm thinking of a different movie, but at the very end, the 2 final characters are kind of up on this roof, right? With these brick walls and everything. I distinctly remember there being a scene where they're sitting there like saying, okay, how do we get down? But that must just been my imagination. But yeah, it freaked me out as a kid, and there's definitely a difference between watching it when you're 11 or 12 or 13 versus watching it as 45.
Yeah,
none of this stuff is scary. It's funny for different reasons. And wow, I talking about unlikable characters. That Stooge guy, when he's yelling at his the girl Helen who's like in the car with him or whatever, he's like calling her a bitch left and right, and like there's just I don't even know if it's misogyny because all the characters are just kind of horrible to each other, but I'm like, these people are like really unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been slightly the problem, not with just 80s films, with horror films in general. In fact, it was part of the problem I had with Blair Witch. And yes, I'm bringing Blair Witch into a discussion with Night of the Demons because I will say that I didn't care for any of the characters in Blair Witch because I looked at them and some of the conflict or the way their personalities are. Now, I remember high school, and you did have clashing personalities that were still kind of not friends, but you hung out with each other because that's who you hung out with. But at the same time, I'm like, why are these people even in the same room together? And that was like with these people, I'm like, what? I understand it's like the only party in town and it's a small town. I get that. But at the same time, I'm like, most of these people are just awful to one another, and yet they're hanging out.
It kind of reminds me of Demon Knight. Like, it's a whole group of people that you wouldn't think would be in the same room together, but they are.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, was it the guy Jay was the kind of preppy guy who looked like he showed up in a Don Johnson costume, but you don't get the feeling that was a costume. It's like that's probably just how he dresses.
Early deep fake Don Johnson. No,
there you go.
There you go.
But no, it's weird because he ended up. I had two of these moments watching this movie. I'm like, where do I know that person from? That was one of them. He was one of the football players in the movie Heathers, which came out, I think, the year after this. And then the girl who played Helen, the one who catches all the abuse from Stooge, she was actually one of the girls on the bus in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 in the beginning that, Freddy takes them to hell. Yeah, it was, and that was about it for my fascination with those characters.
So, I fully get what he was saying with it, but I was like, you like the characters, you find the characters tolerable that you're supposed to find tolerable. They're the ones you want to survive to the end, and it does kind of telegraph it. But I'm like, I guess for me, I didn't notice it as much, even though I was watching it now. He made a good point, and I hadn't really noticed it. But then I realized, well, maybe it's because I grew up with that formula. So for me, it wasn't as, it didn't turn me off to it because I was so used to a lot of 80s films having that kind of formula to where you really own the person who is the least morally corrupt or the person who is the most likable, usually, not always, but usually is the one who's going to survive at the end.
Well, they subverted expectations in two key ways. And I didn't really pick up on this until this morning when I watched it. The good girl, she's, the good girl through and through. But early on, we see her changing into her Halloween costume in her bedroom. She might as well have been fully naked. I mean, she's wearing like lace underwear, and you can see like pretty much everything. But that's the director and the camera person saying, "Hey, look what we got." It's not her like overtly sexualizing herself. But you don't see like Adrian King from Friday the 13th like getting taking a hot shower or something like that. The closest I think you get in Elm Street is Nancy Thompson like changing her shirt at the very end, but then you just kind of see some bare back. But the other cliche is, the character Roger, I think his name is, the pirate.
Yeah.
The black guy survives to the end.
Yes.
Yes. And I don't know when that kind of thing became a trope, but I almost feel like Kevin Tenney I think he wrote and directed this?
I believe
or did someone else write it?
No, someone else wrote it. Who wrote this? Joe Augustine.
Okay. Maybe Joe had thought, hey, I've seen enough of these movies. This will really surprise some folks because people are going to think, oh, he's going to be the first to go or one of the early deaths. But no, it was really nice to see.
In fact, the guy who wrote this wrote Night of the Demons 2, which I just finished watching before here. He also wrote a film called Night Angel, but that's all he did. He did work as a production coordinator on Hard Rock Zombies. So, but he didn't do much, just this. But you're right. It does subvert that expectations. And would you say, Kara, that it subverts them in a few ways? Did any stand out for you?
I think I've probably seen it too many times to where I didn't really notice anything like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, or I didn't see anything coming. Probably just more the thing like Roger seemed to be the only guy that really knew what was what. He knew how to navigate against the demons and all of this other stuff, whereas everybody was just oblivious. And I don't know if that's meant to be like a cultural reference, like to his upbringing.
Because he grew up with a preacher. He comes from a stronger religious background than the rest of your characters in here. It is interesting for his character. And also my son did like him because the minute the weird stuff just started to happen, he's like, I'm out of here. And my son's like, yes. And he's like, oh, but are they going to, they got stopped by the wall, the demon wall, that they put up the wall and hid the gate. So he's like, oh man, he was sad at that, but he gave mad props to Roger and the other girl for leaving. They actually left the building, which again, you don't necessarily see. Usually they get all trapped in there, but they were able to at least get out to the outside, not off the property. But of Hull House, which the story, the legend of Hull House is it's a former mortuary, and the residents there, the family that ran it, killed one of their members, kind of Amityville style, killed all the family members and then aced themselves. And so it was haunted from that demonic possession. And it's got a circle, underground river running through it that we know demons can't cross running water.
Yeah, because it's a purifier.
Yep. Yeah. But it's underground. I always thought that was interesting that they got away with it by saying, well, the river's underground. I'm like, okay, I'll buy it. Sure. But
there was science. There was a stethoscope.
There was a stethoscope.
I couldn't talk.
It is a hard word to say. Yeah, there is a stethoscope involved when they listen to the running water. So, which it was interesting because the guy played in the doctor costume because they're having this Halloween party at this haunted house, and he's dressed as a doctor, and he calls the girl over with the stethoscope, and you think maybe he's trying to put the move on her or something. He's like, no, here, listen, on the ground. And she's like, running water. It's like, oh yeah, there's a running river underneath this entire thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. he's not just trying to put the moves on her. So, you got Stooge, you got all of this. You got your goth girl, Angela, who has her friend played by Linnea Quigley, Suzanne, who, what's interesting with their characters, I will say is, and you guys could definitely add, what you thought of these two characters, because I thought it was interesting that they weren't actually ones who were trying to raise the dead or whatever, because usually, okay, they're inviting everybody over specifically to do the demonic rising or whatever. But I got the impression they were just having people over to have a scary party in this haunted house, that they weren't actually there to raise the demons. The demons kind of just got loose at one point. Did you get that impression that they weren't luring these kids there to actually like sacrifice them or whatever? They were just having the party at the haunted house? Or am I off on that?
I don't think Suzanne was caught up in that. I mean,
Right.
She and Angela were friends, but I don't know, it is kind of fuzzy because it was the one girl who was like the girlfriend of the doctor character. I don't remember half these characters' names, but
Right.
she was the one who had said, hey, I'd heard about these mirror seances. I think that was, that's Helen saw the demon face in the mirror, so maybe that's what inspired them. But yeah, you're right. I had kind of thought of this as Angela's, night, because she's like the iconic face on the poster and everything.
Right.
And, she kind of ends up becoming the queen bee at the end. But yeah, I don't think they're meant to be like trapping these, sacrifices in the house or anything. I think it was just a sad coincidence.
Yeah, that's the way I felt. Cara, what about you? Did you get the impression of that as well, that it was just kind of a unfortunate series of events?
I would agree with that. I mean, especially considering Angela was the goth chick and it's her party.
Right.
It's kind of like, I have to make a statement here. So it's like, what am I going to do to shock and impress everybody and make sure they go to school telling what happened?
Right. And they do the mirror thing just because it's kind of like the Bloody Mary. Stand in front of a mirror and get Bloody Mary, see who gets scared. It might not actually happen, but people will imagine it would. And little does she know that there's actual real demons in this house until one of them decides to take her over, which we'll get into in a minute, but I want to dive into these comments here. First, we have Petty back. She says, hello. Very good movie. Discovered a jewel that I didn't know existed, and I enjoyed it. And that's great to hear, Petty. So makes me so happy when people explore these films as well and enjoy them. And yes, we do have the published list of movies out that Petty suggested, which helped. And Petty also writes, "It's funny how time flies. A few years ago, I would have identified with the protagonist, but now I identify more with the grumpy old man."
You're not alone.
Yeah, I do too. I like the grumpy old man. He's kind of a surprise character in here. You think they're going to be, it's just the gimmick of the car driving past and he, damn kids, and that's it, but we actually stay on him for a little while, don't we, Kara? That's a little bit of a surprise for a character like this, isn't it?
Well, you can kind of have to justify at the beginning why he's grouchy. Everybody keeps running into him. They're doing all this stuff. He's not bothering anybody. And then poor Alice turns up and she's actually trying to help her. And he's like, "Start off. I've had enough of this."
Yeah, you're breaking my plan of sticking razor blades into apples, which definitely was a thing in the 80s. That was one of the big things, is if you get fruit or so, because someone actually did that. I think it was on the East Coast or somewhere. They actually did. There were people putting razor blades in like candy and apples and such. I remember that as a kid, but
we still check the candy to this day.
Yeah, well, you just do that so you could see which ones you like to eat, and then just kidding.
No, I'm doing my job as a responsible parent, Mark. I don't even eat the candy. I hate candy. Candy's disgusting. You got any? Sorry.
Wow, your kid definitely loves you then. No parent tax there.
That's hard for me. I'm a total sugar bug, and I was.
Me too. I'm kidding.
I even have growing up, I thought I had the best birthday because I was born the day before Halloween. So I would get presents one day and then I would get to dress up and get candy the next day.
Wow, that is awesome. You can still do that. Why do kids get to have all the fun and go get candy door to door? Maybe because it's not quite as creepy as you showing up. Hi, trick or treat.
I think nowadays, if you show up dressed and knock on doors asking for candy, you're asking for way more trouble than just candy.
Depending on the neighborhood, yeah. And Petty also wrote us, "This movie is faithful demonstration that you can have a diverse cast and not ruin the movie. The movie is what it is, but it is very enjoyable." That is true, even with the characters. And we were chiding earlier that the characters are unlikable. Mostly, I mean, they're very tropish and kind of one note, okay, that you're going to get in a horror film like this, but it's still entertaining. This film, they still managed to make it entertaining. You're absolutely right. And it is the dynamic that they don't exactly like each other throughout the film. And I think that helps. I mean, at one hand, you're like, why are these people hanging out with each other? They don't like one another. At the other hand, it makes for some interesting situations, like Stooge just annoying the piss out of everyone. And then you have your two happy couples, the one couple that with the virginal girl and the guy who really wants to get with her because supposedly when she dated this other guy who's got a reputation, she slept with him. And she's like, yeah, that's none of your business, but that's why you went out with me. Then this wonderful scene on top of a was it an autopsy table?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, okay, all these actors are like 25, 28, 30 years old. If they'd skewed younger in the casting, I think I might have believed that because I could buy them as like an extremely horny teenager who will literally do it anywhere. But I'm like, I couldn't. No.
Oh, come on.
I'm not gonna get too graphic, but there's no way I could get excited like in a haunted house. I don't care how cute the Alice costume is.
Those metal tables are very cold. There's nothing doing.
Unless it's like Slaughter High, where the metal table is actually an electric table, and you get running through you while you're doing it. Yeah.
Was that a table or was that just a metal bedposts in Slaughter High? I think.
Yeah, that's right. I think
it was metal bedposts. I remember that scene in Slaughter High because they're really, really into what they were doing in the bed, and then he puts the two because it was a car battery. That's what'll. Don't think too deeply. And he electrocutes the bed with it. Yeah, and here there's no electrocution bed, but there is a guy who gets shot down after our heroine decides that she doesn't want anything to do with him because he's only going out with her because he thinks she puts out, for lack of a better term, for back in the 80s.
He probably walked past her house and saw her undergarments while she was getting undressed.
Yeah, that seems to happen. Yeah. I mean,
we also have that bodacious scene from her kid brother, which that was really weird.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring that up. Folks, early on in this film, Judy is her actual name, but she is dressed up as Alice, and I called her Alice throughout the entire film too. She's getting ready, and this is okay, mind you, this is after she's taken off her pants scene. She left her sweater on, but she takes off her pants and puts on different pants. She opens up her closet, and her brother jumps out in a mask. And you're like, oh, okay, brother playing a prank. That is, but then he adds the comment. He says, you have, was it bodacious boobs or something? You afraid I'm going to see your bodacious boobs, sis? Or no, he says, like, nice bodacious boobs, sis. Or something. He gives a very awkward statement that you're just like, that's weird. So does the rest of her family. Well, her mom anyway, too.
Oh, with the turd cookies or whatever they were.
Yeah, those things were gross.
And she was so offended. She's like, why don't you want my shit cookies? You know, I also love, because I'm glad you brought the thing up with the little brother, because like it's soon after that, I think that the Sal character shows up, the guy in like the blue jean jacket. I was wondering,
Mr. Rico Suave, yeah.
Right, but I was wondering, is everyone in this film going to talk like they're in the Ninja Turtles cartoon? Is like, you got some bodacious boobs. And then Sal's like, hey, up your nose with a rubber hose. I think he actually uses the word doll face at one point.
Yeah, he does.
Like, I know this movie was written in 1988, but I feel like the screenwriter like grew up in 1958. I'm like, nobody talks like this.
Well, I mean, he even had the greaser hairdo going on as well. And he didn't have a leather jacket, but he had a jean jacket. So there you go. That was the 80s equivalent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sal, he's the ex who still is somewhat pining for her. But
wait, was that the ex that Judy was with? Oh,
yeah.
I barely picked up on that.
Yeah, because that's Sal. And that's why her current boyfriend said that, yeah, well, we all know you went out with Sal, and they know Sal's reputation, and they just it was one of those interesting.
They assumed.
Yeah, it was an equivalency thing, and you're just like, oh, dude, that's the wrong conclusion to make.
I just want to see a movie about like Judy and Sal's date. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, probably boring.
Boring for them, I'm sure, but I would love to watch it.
Or something.
They went bowling. Well, she had a good time. He just kept on sitting there, thinking about, when he was going to get his opportunity. That was his whole thing. And then you had your other couple who were the pretty couple who did get along. And they do have shared experiences because they decide, hey, I've never made it in a coffin before.
Yeah.
Sorry, nothing. You look at a coffin, nothing about a coffin goes, oh man, I haven't done it there before. I
just kept thinking about the movie Once Bitten.
What 18-year-old has a boob job?
Oh yeah, that's true. That's yeah. Well, I don't think there was an age restriction back in the 80s. I'm not sure, or at least I think it was 16 instead of like 18 or 21. It is now, but you're right. Well, that goes along with the casting of these characters, that they're playing the age that they aren't by a number of years.
I think it was might have been 2 years after this movie. That same actress who was the girlfriend in the coffin, she showed up in Sleepaway Camp 3: Teenage Wasteland, playing essentially the same thing. She was the hot Asian troubled chick who takes off her top and is quickly murdered.
Well,
it's a proud, storied resume.
I don't remember her. I remember the mosquito bites at the beginning, that with the pin written on her.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Milkshake?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I remember that. I love that mosquito bites. It took me a sec. I'm like, oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, and most of these people do get off in creative ways, which I like to talk about, because we get the first act, like I said, which is your introduction to all these characters, and you're like, most of them, okay, some annoying. Then they get together into the party, which isn't exactly a great party. We get introduced to Suzanne and Angela, who Suzanne uses her assets to help distract some convenience store gentlemen so that they could steal alcohol.
Yeah. The sour balls line was just hilarious.
It was that's the director's cut. Originally in the theatrical cut, apparently that was cut out, the sour balls scene.
Was it too risque for this movie?
I guess.
But I get it though. I'm like, I remember that was a pretty big candy or gum that people would chew back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it took me back as well to all those that Now and Laters. Those were huge back then when I was a kid in my neighborhood.
It's a great line that was completely destroyed by the delivery. Hey, do you guys have sour balls? And I'm sorry, I was holding back.
I know you were, but I enjoyed that. I liked her performance in this. I mean,
there's really no way you could have asked. You could have sold hot tamales or anything like that.
Yeah,
it's not the line; it's the delivery.
The delivery for him. It's not delivery; it's the journal. But no,
Ooh. Now I'm hungry again.
I ate DiGiorno last night, actually.
Oh, did you really? Hey. Now I want DiGiorno.
Seriously. Anyway. Let's take a break and bake some pizza. We'll come back. We'll do it live.
Take a pizza bake break. There you go.
We'll just order it and we'll go pick it up. We'll do take and bake.
There you go.
No, I'm seriously.
I got one two blocks down, a take and bake place, but there is no bake in this. That's what's surprising. It's a 1988 film. You've got teenagers at a party. No one's getting high. You don't have your stoner here. You
booze, right? Yeah, that's about.
They got booze. Yeah. But how many actually drink the booze? I think Stooge drinks the booze, but most of the people don't even drink the drinks that they bought, which I just realized now that most of the people stayed fairly sober during it. So that I just realized that.
They were drunk on teenage hormones.
There was a lot of teenage hormones. So you had your one couple with the guy and the girl who isn't going to have sex with him, and then you have the couple that do have sex, and then you got your Roger. As we mentioned, left, and the other girl left leaves Stooge and the two ladies, Suzanne and Alice, and Suzanne goes off, she kind of
up her makeup.
She touches up her makeup in a creative way. And then stirs her lipstick in an unusual place, which, I dug. What I love about the scene is just that it's so odd and creepy. The way it's set up and everything, and the way they come out, because she ends up getting possessed by the demon after it possesses Angela, who actually, I just, like I said, I just have to finish up. I almost finished it before the show started, Night of the Demons 2. And they actually have a little explanation of the kissing thing of the demons, what kind of causes the possession. It's more than just a kiss. But I'll get into it a little later. But
is it a direct sequel to this movie? Or
yes.
Is it, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. Night of the Demons 2 is a direct sequel to this. I mean,
I enjoy it a lot more. It has a lot more funnier points. It moves at a quicker pace. I think Christy Brinkley's in it.
Whoa! I gotta watch this now.
Night of the Demons 2 is it has more of its tongue in its cheek, but at the same time, it does move a lot more. There are far more exploitation elements in it. It came out in '94. I mean, a lot more. Huh?
Oh no, sorry. I was going to say my favorite scene was the severed head in the commode. There's a girl that's running up to the toilet, and she opens up the lid, and he's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Well, the obvious."
Yeah, Night of the Demons 2 gets pretty gonzo, but there you have some religious folks who bring the battle to the demons. It's this whole wild thing, but it is a direct sequel to this film, which surprisingly, there are some more entertaining part. It is definitely faster paced than this one, because as we said, folks, things don't really get picked up until the third act in Night of the Demons, but boy, do they pick up. Once Angela gets possessed, she does this interpretive dance type thing going on with warning, folks, if you do suffer from seizures, don't watch this film, because there is 2 strobe scenes in here that I was like, wow, okay. Oh, turn off the strobe, man. I know it's the 80s, but wow.
It's, it reminded me of the Crispin Glover dance scene from Friday the 13th final chapter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Imagine if she, I feel like she had just watched that movie before the party started and said, I can do that and get and be possessed by spirits.
Yeah, but he didn't have garter belts on and black undergarments. So
thank God for a small miracle.
I don't know. It might have saved his dance.
It might have saved his dance.
Pull a little bit of a Tim Curry there.
There you go. Angela pulls off this dance far better, and that's when we actually get things going, is when she possesses Stooge with a kiss, a deadly kiss that turns him into a zombie, and he's the first victim, and then Suzanne is the next one, I do believe, who fixes her makeup, as in she creates this really weird pattern on her face. It's a very creepy scene. I know you were giving Lene's performance a hard time, but I like
she was great, but every time she was on screen I was like, wow, this is great, and then she spoke and I was like, it's all ruined.
But I like the makeup scene, and it's interesting what they did with this scene. Carl, what'd you think of this whole scene where she's in and she's fixing her makeup, she's full on possessed, she's got the clown paint with her makeup, and Alice's boyfriend, Judy's boyfriend, has just been shot down, and he walks in on her, and things get interesting. What'd you think of this scene, and particularly what she does with the lipstick?
I thought it was freaky back in the day. Why on earth you would just turn your boob into a kangaroo pouch, I have no idea, though.
I don't know, but it's one of the many interesting practical effects they do on here, because I will say, for 88 and for the type of film this is, I love all the practical and makeup effects they do in this film. Even, as my son called it, the Dungeons and Dragons dragon head that we get, that's the demon. He's like, oh, the D&D dragon's back. Which it did, but I really dug the makeup effects in here, all of them, including the one where she decides to hide the lipstick in one of her breasts for whatever reason. It's a demon. What are you going to do? Which that lipstick does come into play in Night of the Demons too later on, by the way.
Does she take it back out?
No, it's in a medicine cabinet, and somebody applies the lipstick.
Yeah.
It's the same. How do we know that it's the same one?
Well, it's designed the same way. The lipstick case is the same.
So it's designed like lipstick.
What? It's the same one. It's in the demon house. It's in the demon house in the medicine cabinet. Angela's in the demon house. Same lipstick. You can draw the conclusion that
how
it's
to get out of her body. I don't.
Oh my God! Why do you ask so many questions?
She tooted. I don't know.
The demons did die at the end of this, in our wonderful chase that we have here, because as people are getting picked off, they're becoming zombies, and they are chasing our Judy around, and Roger, who can't get out of anywhere because the wall is all the way around the house, and they go on a run, and she does become the heroine. She does become the hero at the end of this film. I mean, she is Miss Innocent and kind of damsel in distress, but she does kind of pull off the hero at the end, doesn't she, Ian?
It's a team effort. I mean, because she's almost dead meat when they discover the wall. The only way up to safety is a thin strand of barbed wire.
Oof.
Yeah.
And Roger gets up to the top, and he's laying down against the top of the wall, extending his hand to reach Judy and she's trying to get up. There's hordes of monsters coming after her. And I will say, I mean, this part really, they didn't even really show a whole lot, and they didn't need to, because once you realize what she's climbing up on, you're like, oh my God, that's a choice right there. You know, you almost couldn't blame her if she was, you know, fuck it, I'm just gonna fall back into this crowd of monsters. But no, it's a really effective little scene there. I do want to rewind just for a second.
Yeah.
How about that lipstick thing? This was another artifact of my youth, because I remember distinctly when I was 11 or 12 watching this on cable, that scene with Suzanne and Jay. I remembered her like having sex with him, like getting on top, gouging out his eyeballs, and
which
then,
is a wonderful effect.
yeah, there's a great couple of pops there. But after that, I remember, and I just got the events mixed up, of her taking the lipstick and like putting it in her nipple and then like leaving.
Oh, I gotcha.
And I think my imagined version it's much better. Because yeah, when she puts it on and then he walks in the room, I'm like, no, this is all wrong.
But you do get a great effect of her popping his eyes as she starts getting it on with him, because he's like, oh, hey, I can have sex with someone finally. You know, the makeup's a little weird, but we'll work with it.
Yeah, that guy was possessed by his own penis. I mean, that's
he
like
was
before anything got into him. Oh, and then it's like later, some great Freddy Krueger puns in here, like, hey, Judy, here's your blind date. I'm like, oh, what are we doing here?
You want to have an orgy? You know, so she drops that line too.
Yeah.
And we got some Petty comments here as well. Petty mentions that in Argentina we don't have a celebration of Halloween. Oh, here we know the concept in broad strokes, but I always had the doubt of the meaning of the celebration. Is only reduced to asking for candies from house to house, or does it have a deeper implication? You can see some of this in the movie, but left wondering if it's an exaggeration in order to comply with the script. No, it's well, the trick or treat part of it, and I'm sure my panel here far more versed in stuff like this than myself. But the candy was offered to prevent someone from doing a trick to your house, and the tradition of that, I think, does lead to demons, just like the jack-o'-lantern. Someone help me out here.
I never really followed this stuff. I mean, that's the only thing I know about Halloween is you go to door and say trick or treat, but I've never known of someone to say, I'll take a trick. It's always like you just say trick or treat in order to get the candy, and then you move on to the next house. And then sometimes people have Halloween parties where you just get dressed up and you drink, and it's an excuse to show off your costumes and fool around in a back bedroom somewhere.
Well, it's actually it's modernized, because this comes from All Hallows Eve. So Halloween is just kind of, that's where you get the apostrophe. They just kind of mishmashed the word, and that's where Halloween comes from. But it's considered one of the nights where the veil is the thinnest, where ghouls and all kinds of other things can roam the earth. So that's why people wear costumes to guise themselves as protection. I'm not really sure where the candy comes in. That's more of a modernized thing that was thrown in.
You gotta have something to put the razors in.
Well, I do remember from yes, I learned from movies more than reading, because I know that's a surprise to our audience. But there was, the whole jack-o'-lantern thing too was to ward off evil spirits, right? You put the light in the candle and you made the scary face, so it would keep demons in such a way.
Yeah, it's to light your way. You're not supposed to let it go out throughout the night. Originally, it was a turnip and not a pumpkin.
Oh, really? That's got to be harder to carve.
Yeah.
I would think a turnip, and you need a smaller candle, unless you're growing some like 3 Mile Island turnips, like some serious, I've been crossbreeding turnips for ages. I've made one the size of a basketball now.
And then someone's like, "Well, I'll just use pumpkins." And you're like, "Oh
yeah.
Man,
they're easier to cut into."
They are easy to cut into.
And they make better pies. The pumpkins.
They do make better pies. We don't get any jack-o'-lanterns in this, so that either that's disappointing, at least in the house at all. Though you don't need it because, as you said, Ian, this house is amazing. I don't know how big this house is, but this set design that they have, I love this house. It was its own character, and it was very fitting for. You could see demons living here. I mean, it was like it was. I don't know how many of the cobwebs were dressed up and how many came with the place when they were location scouting. I'm not sure. But
well, one of the things I thought was cool about this was we talked about Doctor Strange last week or whatever, but I saw a lot of Sam Raimi in this movie. And I know Evil Dead 2 had come out the year before, and Evil Dead 1 was, a few years before that. But I mean, everything from like the demon kind of POV as it's sort of an invisible force floating around trying to figure out who it's going to go into, to even that kind of puppet demon head that we saw with the mist and everything, and some of the crazy camera work. I'm like, yeah, this is. I don't know if Kevin Tenney was legit a Sam Raimi fan, but he might as well have been, because this is really fun. And not even in this is more of a pure kind of a horror movie vibe, whereas Evil Dead 2 certainly was horror comedy.
Yeah, I mean there's a bit of horror comedy in here with it, but not too much. It didn't feel like too slapstick comedy. There is some horror comedy in here, I think.
Well, I mean there's comedy, but I mean as far as like the characters like being terrible to each other, but as far as like the demonic elements, like the horror was not set up to be funny. Even the lipstick thing was more meant to be kind of disturbing. It's like, what the hell am I even looking at?
Right.
Now the fact that you can tell that was the same lipstick in the sequel, that to me is funny.
Well, you've got to pay attention to the lipstick and not where the lipstick is going, Ian. So I'm just saying, but
implied.
Look, here's the only way that works. The only way that works is if someone is applying the lipstick and a fucking nipple falls out from between their lips. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
I have thought you were gonna say if a ring fell out, actually.
Oh, or the lipstick starts squirting milk in there.
Wow. Wow. You went there with the gore, which there is gore in here. As we mentioned, there's eyes popping, there's lipstick being kept places.
Lipstick gouging. Eye gouging.
Tongue biting in the beginning with Stooge, which I thought was cool.
The coffin slamming of the arm.
Oh, yes.
And the fact that isn't even paid off until like 2 scenes later, I thought was great, because like I didn't even know that he was going to sever the arm. I just thought he was going to break it and shove it in there so to be locked in there with his neck broken girlfriend.
Right. Ugh. Which they both, when they come back possessed, they are at least still missing he's still missing his limb, and her neck is still backwards, which I really enjoyed. Again, great makeup effects, because these are all practical effects they have in here. His girlfriend's neck is like really twisted and he's walking around with no arm at all. His arm is alive, which again, it's another Evil Dead reference.
That's right.
I really think you're onto it, because his severed arm later, we don't realize it actually got severed when the Stooge demon kept slamming the case on it until later when Judy shows up, and then the arm comes out and grabs her ankle
in a really effective,
really cool way.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching it like, damn, that I couldn't tell, because the way that they filmed it, you just see like her leg, like it jumps onto her leg, and I think she's kind of shaking it off. So that felt like it could have been like an effects team insert. Like that wasn't actually the actress. That was someone like with a leg with a stocking on it or something. But I was still like, how the hell did they do that? Was it reversed, or, strings or wires or whatever? But it was very convincing.
It's kind of like that annoying little dog, like, get away.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, well, very much so. Well, even the eye popping scene. I mean, a guy's screaming on it. And I know it's a quick cut in that, but still the way they did this prosthetics, and it's all with the lighting and stuff. For a second there, you're like, oh, she popped his eye, and you're like, oh wait, no, that is prosthetic. But just the way they direct that scene, and in fact, all the gory kill scenes that we get in here, I think, are directed really well. I mean, especially the tongue biting with Stooge. They kind of do this again, kind of Raimi-esque camera movement where it's going around Stooge and Angela as she's gnawing on his face, and then comes out and her face is bloody, and then you're like, oh, and then she spits the tongue out. I know it's a cut between, but still, it's just all really well done. And Sal even gets a redemption moment in here. Sal, who was, still kind of pining for Judy and also leering at Suzanne and Angela and pretty much any of the females in the group. He does get a redemption thing at the end because he takes on Angela, who's chasing our Judy, who's hanging from the edge of the house as she got chased to the top. And Sal grabs Angela and jumps off the roof and proceeds to get impaled.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't actually see him get impaled, right? We saw him fall, but then like later it's in a wide shot. You see him kind of in the background, and then later after that we see the pull through, which are another really great effect. Yeah.
Well, because she finally jumps down because Roger's at the bottom, telling her just scooch over and drop down. And when she drops down, then we see what happened to Sal. So yeah, it's another interesting choice they make to where we don't see Sal get offed right away. So it almost makes you think they do the whole, oh man, I fell through the, he gets up and, does some, no, he gets impaled by a fence piece.
Oh, or he could have done the Pee Wee Herman from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was like,
God, I love that scene. But you don't get that in here. But yeah, you get this wonderful chase. At one point, they're trapped in a crematorium, and it's hilarious because I found myself, and I could just imagine myself in an audience doing this. They get chased by the demons, down into the basement, and there's in the crematorium, and she's like, "Oh, look, there's the one open door. We can go through this tunnel." And I'm like, It's not a tunnel. Don't go in don't go in the oven.
And then she's all surprised. It's an oven.
Yeah,
there's a skull in here. You do realize you're in a mortuary.
Yeah, right. You're in a mortuary in the basement. Big, huge iron door, and then your hand happens to grab a skull, which took you a while to look at it to identify it. Going, ew. But she does use and make a makeshift flamethrower. So mad props to her there in setting fire to at least two of the demons.
Realistically, though, it took so long to get the lighter to actually turn on. She should have blown up the entire room.
That's I had that thought too for a minute. I'm like, that's a lot of gas to be letting out before you actually light it. You usually want to light the lighter first and then turn.
Not that we're giving people ideas.
Not only if you're being chased by demons, folks.
Yes.
If you're being chased by demons trapped in a crematorium, turn the gas off on the pipe first, break the pipe, and then light your Bic lighter and then turn on the gas. That is the proper way to really.
But a scorch lighter is more reliable because it's electric, so it'll just turn right on the first try.
Oh, there you go, scorch lighter. Yeah, rather than trying to do the Bic lighter, which it's a setup. It's not even, it's a little bit more subtle foreshadowing than what you might get out of a film like this. I mean, it's going to come into play, but she has this lighter that can't light when she's trying to light candles, and she just puts it on the table, and Angela goes, "Don't litter." I'm like, just sitting here going, I'm like, don't leave your lighter laying about. And I'm like, really? You're going to be that person at the party? Really?
Explains why she doesn't have any friends.
Yeah, well, then her one friend says, "I'll just leave it." And she's like, no, because she's that good. She won't leave her lighter at the party as, garbage for the party people. And then it comes into play later when she can light the makeshift blowtorch. Then we get to the end where Roger and her live, which, again, is kind of a surprise, seeing Roger live in a wonderful way. It made me very happy, and I had forgotten that Roger lives at the end of this. Not unscathed, because not only were they climbing up barbed wire, which I don't know, for me, anything with barbed wire, whenever I see it, it just makes me flinch. It's like, that's the one horror gimmick that no matter how many times I run across it, just like, maybe it's because I've had too many run-ins with barbed wire.
And it was one of the worst comic book adaptations ever. I mean, come on. They didn't even try.
Well, no, they were going for Casablanca post-apocalyptic. Come on. That's what she was. She was the Humphrey Bogart in that film.
She got
It
the
was
humps
a
part.
demon death match with barbed wire.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, and then at the end we saw our two heroes there just beat to hell walking down the street. I love that too. How, you know, there's not really a huge fanfare or anything. They walk. The sun came out. They managed to delay the demons enough to when the sun comes out, it destroys them. Which they don't really give you an exposition, but you piece together because they mentioned something about Roger mentioned something about waiting till daylight, but.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I like the old man's reaction when he sees him. He's like, "Goddamn kids!" And they do. They look like they just got back from a wild party that they've been out all night. They're totally trashed.
Yeah, right. And then, yeah, go ahead, Ian.
Well, I was going to say, like these, because I think it was Judy gave this kind of soliloquy about, you know, surviving the night based on what Roger had said, but I was surprised they didn't make more of the running water gag because they kind of set that whole thing up, as we mentioned, like with the stethoscope, and they make a big deal about how demons can't cross running water, and that was just pointless. They had nothing to do with the way that the demons were defeated at the end.
No, but I think they kept iterating it just so that it would emphasize the fact that the demons aren't going to escape. You know, they aren't going to see them in the real world if they can get past the running water. I think that's the whole point of the running water was, you know, the way they bring it up was just to remind you, hey, they do have an out of some sort, because the demons can't follow them, more so than defeating demons, just them escaping more so than them ending the demons.
But that's why the lipstick case comes into play in the second film.
Exactly. That's exactly why.
Now I've got a lipstick case. I'm confused.
Which, if you do watch Night of the Demons 2, there's another Raimi reference in that 1994 sequel that involves the lipstick case. But anyway, I digress.
Does someone get their arm cut off in that too, and they replace it with a mechanical arm?
No,
like
unfortunately,
squash things?
No, that does not happen in there.
No, but yeah, like Roger and Judy walking, you know, home in the dawn was nice because they're in complete shock. They're not like bantering, like, "Oh, I guess I'll see you in school next week" or something like that. They're just totally in shock, and they walk past the old man, and that leads nicely into that.
The wonderful stinger, ending. Yeah. Which, if it was made today, it would have probably been an after credit sequence. You know, it would have probably been a mid credit sequence. You know, he would have just said "damn kids," and they walk off, and you do the credits, and then you get like a mid credits where she's making. But we don't get that here. We get this wonderful and that's what I love about the way this movie ends too. I love this ending because where they could have just rolled credits as they're walking down the street, all beat to hell in shock. We get this little thing to where the old man didn't get many trick-or-treaters and he had slept in a bit, and his wife, a very nice, friendly wife who probably has been knowing what he's been up to, said,
and
putting
up with his mess for years.
And putting up with his misogyny and everything for years because he doesn't treat her very well. She makes apple pie out of his razor blade apples, which is a beautiful scene at the end too, with the razors coming through the throat. As you realize, it's a great Tales from the Crypt moment. It's like such a Tales from the Crypt ending.
It's always thrown me off though. Like I don't get why, because I've always imagined that she did it on purpose.
Yeah, and that's what I took it to with her smile, because at the end she just gives him a kiss and she's smiling, and blood. There's no thing to where she thinks he fell asleep in his pie. She knows.
Yeah, he's completely slumped over and everything.
But she's what, 80, 70? Why wait until now? Why didn't you kill him when you were like 30 and you could have found a better husband?
Well, she's in it for the long game. That's the whole thing.
She played the long con. Yeah.
I love the ending of this, but again, it makes no goddamn sense. It's November 1st, all right, in the morning, and you're eating apple pie for breakfast.
Well, yeah, I eat pie for breakfast. If I've got pie, I'll eat pie for breakfast. I'm an adult. I can do what I want, damn it. I can go buy ice cream whenever I want, and I can eat pie for breakfast in the morning.
I'm guilty. I've had chocolate cake for breakfast before.
there you go. Why not? Who says
No,
it has
well,
to be,
I understand if you're like hanging out by yourself and you're just like, oh, I'll just have some pie for breakfast. This is like, you get the feeling that she makes breakfast for him.
Yeah.
So, that's not a thing like, hey, I made you some pie for breakfast. What the hell is wrong with you? Maybe if it was like an apple coffee cake or something like that. But the other thing is, when these razors come out, they're like the full razors. There's no way he would have been able to eat a bite of anything without noticing, hey, there's metal in here.
It should have cut him a little bit sooner.
X-Acto blades would have probably been a little easier to sneak in.
Oh, X-Acto blades.
There was now this would have been the really long game, but the TV show Oz about the men's prison from 25 years ago, there was an episode where there was the big mob boss who was in the joint, and some rival gang members wanted to kill him. So what they did was they ground up glass really fine into his food, like minuscule. So like over the course of a couple of weeks, it built up and it just like shredded his insides.
Yeah.
I feel like if you did something like that, it wouldn't have been as cool, but you can pull it off.
I was gonna say it's still a cool effect though, the razor blades.
It's a cool effect. I was just saying it just like doesn't. When I was 11, it didn't bother me because I think that's who this movie was made for, honestly. But as I'm watching it, like, no, there's no way. Plus, pie for breakfast. Come on.
I mean, I get the razor blade reference. He's a cranky old man. He's getting what he deserves, but it still throws me off. Like, why? You're such a sweet old lady.
Who's got a dark side apparently. And
maybe he rubbed off on her. I don't know.
Right, and the thing is, her dark side isn't like demon infested or anything involved in influenced a demon. It's just she smiles as she kisses his head as he's bleeding out onto her doilies. So it is a bit random. I still love it. I think it's adorable.
Good luck claiming on the insurance, though.
Yeah, that's true.
It would have been great is if she opened up her blouse and like pulled a lipstick out of her nipple and applied it right as before she gave him a kiss on the head.
That would have actually been kind of an interesting connection. Then that would have at least a little connection of why she did what she did. But he's still got
an old lady though. It would have probably had to pop out like a Pez dispenser because we don't want to look at that area for too long.
Now I just want to see a nipple-shaped Pez dispenser.
And on to our comments here from our viewers.
Yeah, sorry, where was I?
Petty puts in, Roger ends up being the only hero of the movie because he manages to overcome his fears and save the girl in distress. Good for you, Roger. You are actually correct, yes, because he does go back up the wall. He actually makes it over the wall, and she's still hanging by the barbed wire and getting grabbed by the demons. And he actually goes back up there. He does conquer his fears because he's been the guy who's been most afraid throughout the entire film, really. And yeah, you're right. He is truly the hero. And she's got a great Petty's got a great comment as well here. Can the store scene be considered offensive or harmless given the context? Could it be reproduced in a movie today? Kara, what do you think? And we're talking to Linnea Quigley distracting the two nerdy convenience store guys as her friend steals the entire store.
I missed the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, the question was, could the store scene be considered offensive or harmless given the context, and could it be reproduced in a movie today?
I think you can still do it. You would definitely have to be a lot more careful with the age of the characters and the costuming, but I think you can still get away with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't take it as I'm a guy, but still I didn't take it as really offensive because it is in the context. She's specifically doing this to distract the boys, so it's not like it's a voyeur thing to where she's unaware they're looking at her.
No, she's doing it on purpose. She's what do you call it? Voluntarily showing off her posterior just to distract, and they're totally just staring, not paying attention to toenail fungus Angela.
She did have some ugly toenails. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take a slightly different tack here, gang.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty offensive. I mean, acting classes are not that expensive, and
here we go again. Okay.
In the what?
No, we're not talking about
something different.
We're not talking about the line delivery for you, Ian. We're talking about the context of the scene of her showing her posterior. to the boys to distract them.
I thought her performance was kind of ass. So we are talking about the same thing.
Wow. Okay. And there you go,
well,
Petty.
I mean, it was definitely in the round.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Nice. But yeah, I think context definitely, it shows that context means a lot of things for scenes like that. And yeah, it was voluntarily. It's not like they were leering and she wasn't aware. She was fully aware and taking advantage of their hormones to
I did love Angela's kind of like Bugs Bunny, like going around the like just shoving shit into the bag. It was so good. It reminded me like the two guys at the counter and then Angela and Suzanne. This was like Kevin Smith was watching this movie when he was inspired by Clerks. I'm convinced it's so Clerks.
Well, and it's great because the other patrons.
There was no dead guy in the bathroom.
No, there wasn't.
Not that we saw.
But the patrons didn't give a rat's ass that Angela was stealing stuff either. They were just going about their business.
Yeah, it was Halloween.
Halloween.
I mean, I don't think it was bad even in a modern day sense because she's owning her sexuality. She's empowering herself. So, I mean, I know a lot of people can go off of the reverse and like, well, she's selling herself short, blah, blah, blah. But I think it just comes down to how you want to read into it.
She's fully playing to the expectation of the guys behind the counter, figuring they are the type of guys which they ended up being. And she takes advantage of that for their own.
Well, she took a gamble assuming that they were heterosexual.
Yes. Yeah, that is the gamble.
Well, I mean, the movie is from 1988, so it's pretty much a sure bet.
Yeah,
but,
well, and they were the typical nerdy guys too. So
right. I mean, it's an Ouroboros of exploitation because she's exploiting them just as much as they're exploiting her by ogling her. Yeah.
There's a mutual exploitation going on there. And Petty also comments, this movie lacked the touch of Kevin Feige to make it a global event in the 80s. Demons across the world. Yes.
Night of the Demons Endgame. I love it.
There you go. And Petty also makes a good comment. The old gentleman had a very good false teeth, and that's why he didn't feel the razors. So yeah, sure.
Possibly.
That's possible.
False tongue, false trachea, the whole bit, all the way down. What?
If he doesn't chew his 32 times, if he just kind of eats in one whole bite and swallows versus chewing, which you can do with apple pie because the
you're an animal.
Yeah.
Mark, your explanation is hard to swallow, but I'll go with
it. Wow. And on that note, I think we're going to end it for the evening. Thank you, Petty, for wonderful comments. So happy to have you here adding to the conversation. And
definitely.
And always fun to have live participation and always fun to have these wonderful crew members in the house, especially to talk horror. And now, as always, this is where I give my folks a license to shill. So give your final thought with Night of the Demons. Would you recommend it? And then you get a license to shill. So Kara, you can go first.
I would still recommend it. It's a good film. It's a little slow, but the practical effects are great. I think the story's good. I mean, I cannot talk tonight. The wait is well worth it.
Yeah. Ian, and how about you, sir?
That's perfectly well said. I don't really have anything to add to it.
Awesome.
Maybe a little more.
I'm still. Well, yes. See, now you rubbed off of me. I'm stuttering, but no, I will say I've been very hard on Linnea Quigley tonight, deservedly so. But I still appreciate her as a horror icon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. Well said. I have no other opinion on that. So now, though, license to shill, Kara, what you got out there that people can find?
I really don't have anything new. I mean, as always, there's always tons of video reviews up on my YouTube channel, Horror Retrospective at YouTube. I have some old Easter-themed or Easter horror-themed stuff on my Instagram. That's also horror_retrospective if anybody's more interested in the, I guess, digital manipulation or artsy-fartsy stuff.
Way to plug that. Yeah. Awesome. And Ian, sir, license to shill.
Yeah, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have the Kicking the Seat YouTube channel, which the big thing going on right now is I posted a video yesterday, or a few days ago, whenever you're watching this, talking about why I am taking a year-long break from superhero movies. So I'm going to save some time and some money and some effort, and we'll come back and see where we are in a year. So that's fun.
It's going to be an interesting situation, but mad props for you for taking that journey. It'll be interesting to see what comes about in a year if you're still talking to me.
Well, no, I'm fully counting on you and the rest of the gang to be on these live streams, because even though I'm not going to be watching them, I'm still going to be doing shows. We'll see how that works out.
And Petty has one last comment. Excellent direct, excellent experts. Thank you very much for everything. Have a good time. And to borrow a phrase from Ian, Excelsior. So
which I borrowed from Stan Lee. So steal from the best. Thank you, Petty.
Well, yeah, I mean, there you go. And I will just say, yes, Night of the Demons. If you like 80s horror, there's a reason this is a classic. My son is correct, and upon watching it now with adult eyes, it does take a little while to get to where you want it to go. But once it does, oh man, it's a wonderful time.
It's a button clencher if you're in a car seat.
It basically goes with the philosophy, and Ian and I have had this discussion on our Patreon episodes, which you can check on our Patreon on the after hours, which is actually before the show. But anyway, sometimes films, good or bad, you remember the ending more so than the beginning. So even if it's slow, if it finishes strong, you're probably going to rate it a little bit higher. It's going to probably sit better with you than if it starts strong and it ends like a popcorn fart, so there you go. And this ends so strong that I think it is worth a watch as
puppy farts sound the same way.
That's true. That's true. They do. Now
you have no cheeks.
It all comes down to flatulence, folks. So I think we'll just say good night, everyone.
I'm horrified, but good night.
Good night.